Hello guys, today we will be talking about a topic. Every controversial red card explained. Now let's get started. Sam Warburton won 11. In the 2011 Rugby World Cup semi-final, Wales captain Sam Warburton is sent off just 18 minutes into the match against France for a tip tackle on winger Vincent Clerc. Referee Alain Roland produces a straight red after Warburton lifts Clerc beyond horizontal and releases mid-air, causing the French back to land dangerously on his upper back. It's the first red card ever issued to a Welsh player in World Cup history, and it comes at the highest possible stakes. At the time of the dismissal, Wales trail 3-0 but still have 62 minutes to play down a man. Despite heroic defending and a try by Mike Phillips in the 58th minute, Wales fall just short, losing 9-8 in one of the lowest scoring World Cup knockouts on record. The call sparks immediate backlash in British media, with former players and pundits split over whether Roland should have shown a yellow instead. The International Rugby Board, however, issues a firm statement the next day, backing Roland's interpretation, citing new directives around dangerous tackles. Even the timing of the release mid-air versus grounded becomes a debated distinction. The red card becomes a reference point for high-stakes officiating and reshapes the perception of tackle safety into the 2015 law cycles. Sebastian Vahamahina, Team 19. In the 49th minute of the 2019 Rugby World Cup quarterfinal in Oida French Lock, Sebastian Vahamahina drives his elbow into the jaw of Welsh flanker Aaron Wainwright during a rolling maul. The act is captured in clear view by multiple broadcast angles and reviewed by the TMO. Referee Jacco Paper shows a straight red card, reducing France to 14 men while holding a 19-10 lead. Vahamahina becomes the first French player sent off in a World Cup knockout game, and the turning point is immediate Wales score through Ross Moriarty, and later take the lead with a converted try by Ross Moriarty in the 74th minute. The final score reads 20-19, ending France's campaign in a match they had controlled for nearly an hour. Vahamahina issues no post-match interview and announces his retirement from international rugby the very next day, citing a prior decision to step away. The timing draws scrutiny, as many question whether the elbow reflects a broader issue with France's discipline record at World Cups. It's the 6th French red card in tournament history, and by far the most damaging. The dismissal hands momentum to a Welsh team already riding tournament-best defensive efficiency and forces France back into a post-mortem they've seen before. Sonny Bill Williams, 2017. In the second test of the 2017 British and Irish Lions Tour, Sonny Bill Williams becomes the first All Black in 50 years to receive a red card. The incident unfolds in the 25th minute, when Williams attempts a tackle on winger Anthony Watson, but makes direct contact with his shoulder to Watson's head with no wrap of the arms. Referee Jérôme Garcet consults the TMO and applies World Rugby's then-new high tackle framework, issuing a straight red. New Zealand, already down 3-0 at the time, are forced to play 55 minutes with 14 men for the first time in a home test since 1967. Despite the numerical disadvantage, the All Blacks stay within one score until the 77th minute, when Owen Farrell converts a penalty to seal a 24-21 Lions win. The loss breaks a 47-match unbeaten streak at Eden Park and sets up a deciding third test. Williams receives a 4-week suspension post-match, missing the rest of the series. The tackle is later used in referee training videos to illustrate non-mitigated head contact under the 2017 protocols. The red card resets global expectations around shoulder-first collisions and alters how backline defenders approach upright contact through the rest of the decade. Peter O'Mahony, 2021. In the opening match of the 2021 Six Nations Ireland flanker, Peter O'Mahony receives a red card just 14 minutes into the contest against Wales. The dismissal follows a high-speed ruck entry where O'Mahony drives his shoulder into the head of prop Thomas Francis without attempting a legal bind. Referee Wayne Barnes immediately halts play, and after TMO consultation shows a straight red marking, Ireland's first sending off in the championship since Paul O'Connell in 2006. At the time of the incident, the score is tied 3-3 with both sides still probing for rhythm. Down a man for 66 minutes, Ireland managed to hold parity until the final 10, but concede a late converted try to George North and fall 21-16 in Cardiff. The red card draws criticism from Irish media, but is upheld by the citing panel, resulting in a 3-week suspension for O'Mahony. The loss becomes pivotal as Ireland finished the tournament with 4 wins, but no title, trailing Wales, who claimed the championship on points difference. It also triggers renewed emphasis on ruck technique during IRFU training protocols that summer. The early red and its cascading effect on match tempo shifts Six Nations strategy into a new cycle of hyper-regulated contact zones. In the final round of the 2020 Six Nations England Centre, Manu Tuilagi is sent off in the 75th minute for striking George North with a tucked forearm during a cover tackle. The incident occurs near the right touchline as North attempts to cut inside. Tuilagi leads with the arm, connects with North's head and drops him immediately. Referee Ben O'Keefe initially signals for a yellow, but after TMO review and citing the absence of mitigation, he upgrades it to red. It's Tuilagi's first red card in 43 test caps, and England are already ahead 33-16 at the time of dismissal. The match held on March 7th becomes the last international fixture before the COVID-19 shutdown halts global rugby for 5 months. Tuilagi receives a 4-week suspension following the citing commissioner's review, ruling him out of club play through early April, though the Premiership itself pauses shortly after. The tackle is replayed heavily in law webinars and World Rugby briefings during lockdown, often paired with shoulder charge comparisons from earlier rounds. England go on to win the Six Nations title on points difference after the tournament resumes in late October, but Tuilagi's dismissal reignites debate over upright tackling and closing speed in midfield defense. The red card sets a boundary for forearm-led contact, as rugby's rulebook adapts to reduced tolerance around head collisions. Freddie Steward 2023. In the 2023 Six Nations, decider at Aviva Stadium, England fullback Freddie Steward receives a red card just before halftime for a collision with Ireland's Hugo Keenan. The incident unfolds in open play as Keenan stoops to collect a bouncing ball, and Steward, adjusting his line, late turns sideways in an apparent attempt to avoid contact. Referee Jaco Pieper rules it a reckless shoulder-to-head collision with no mitigation and sends Steward off in the 40th minute. At the time, Ireland led 10-6, but have been slowed by England's defensive pressure and tactical kicking. Down to 14 men for the full second half, England concede 2 converted tries and fall 29-16 as Ireland seal their first Grand Slam, clinched in Dublin. The decision sparks widespread backlash, with former players, analysts, and even World Rugby officials questioning the lack of contextual judgment. Steward's red card is overturned 6 days later by an independent disciplinary panel, which concludes the contact was accidental, not reckless. The reversal becomes the first in Six Nations history to erase a red card post-match without downgrading to yellow. The controversy pushes law reviewers to clarify distinctions between reckless intent and unavoidable impact, just as the sport debates new tackle height directives set for the 2023 World Cup. Marika Koroibete domina studios. In the deciding match of the 2021 France-Australia Test Series, Wallabies winger Marika Koroibete is sent off in the 5th minute for a high-speed tackle on French captain Anthony Gillange. Referee Ben O'Keefe initially rules the contact as direct shoulder-to-head with high force and no mitigation, producing a straight red after brief TMO consultation. The dismissal shocks both benches, especially given Gillange's low body height during the carry and Koroibete's clear wrap attempt. At the time of the red, the score is 0-0 and Australia face 75 minutes a man down in a series tied 1-1. Despite the early deficit, the Wallabies respond with aggressive breakdown pressure and manage to score 3 tries to France's 2. The match ends 33-30 in Brisbane, Australia's first win after a red card since 2009. The next day, a disciplinary panel clears Koroibete of any wrongdoing, ruling the tackle legal and the card unwarranted. The reversal marks one of the fastest red card overturns in modern Test rugby. It also reignites debate about real-time TMO protocols and whether referees should err toward yellow when angles are inconclusive. The call triggers new training guidance from World Rugby just 2 weeks before the 2021 Rugby Championship kicks off. In March 2020, during the final round of the Six Nations Ireland Centre, Bunde Akai is sent off in the 63rd minute for a high tackle on England flanker Sam Underhill. The contact occurs just outside Ireland's 22, with Akai leading into the upright collision and making direct contact with Underhill's head. Referee Ben O'Keefe reviews the incident with the TMO and issues a red Underworld Rugby's high tackle protocol, ruling out any mitigating factors. Despite the dismissal, Ireland maintained control of the match, having already built a 20-point buffer by halftime. The final score reads 32-18, marking Ireland's biggest win over England in 5 years, and their first in the Andy Farrell era. For Aki, it's his second red card in 13 months, following his sending off against Samoa during the 2019 Rugby World Cup. He receives a 3-week suspension and misses Ireland's opening fixtures in the delayed 2020 Autumn Nations Cup. The recurrence raises questions about upright tackling among midfield carriers, particularly as defensive speed narrows time to adjust. Aki's card forces Ireland to recalibrate their defensive structure for the November window, just as World Rugby begins revising its sanction thresholds for repeat offenses. For Pablo Materas 2023. In Argentina's opening match of the 2023 Rugby World Cup flanker, Pablo Matera receives a red card in the 65th minute after a head clash with England fullback Freddie Steward. The collision occurs as Steward breaks the line and Matera, tracking across from the blind side, attempts a wrap tackle but arrives late and upright. Referee Mathieu Reynal initially shows a yellow under the new head contact protocols introduced just weeks before the tournament, triggering an automatic bunker review. After a 10-minute off-field assessment, the foul play review officer upgrades it to red for direct high-force head contact with no mitigation. The dismissal halts any chance of an Argentine comeback. At the time of the card, England lead 21-10 behind George Ford's 6 penalties and a drop goal, and close out a 27-10 win. Matera's sending off marks the first red card issued under the bunker system at a Men's World Cup, and underscores the IRB's updated guidance on upright tackling posture. The decision sparks debate in South American media, especially as replays show Steward dipping just before contact. The loss forces Argentina into must-win territory for the remainder of Pool D and sets a defensive tone for the tournament's officiating standards. Ben Tameifuna 2023. Tonga captain Ben Tameifuna becomes the first player in his country's history to receive a red card in a Rugby World Cup match during their 2023 pool stage clash with Scotland. The incident occurs in the 57th minute, with the score still within 2 converted tries, as Tameifuna leads into a tackle with a tucked right shoulder that makes direct, forceful contact with the head of Scotland prop Jamie Botty. Referee Carl Dixon initially signals a yellow and sends the decision to the TMO bunker, where it's upgraded to red under the head contact protocol due to the lack of mitigation. The call removes Tonga's scrummaging anchor at a critical point, just as they push to regain momentum in a match that had begun to tilt. At the time of the card, Scotland lead 31-17, but have not fully broken Tonga's resistance. In the final 20 minutes, the numerical advantage widens the gap as Scotland add 2 unanswered tries and seal a 45-17 win in Nice. The decision, though technically correct under 2023's tightened framework, provokes frustration from the Tongan camp, who argue Botty's drop in height narrowed Tameifuna's margin for adjustment. It also draws attention to the disproportionate impact of red cards on Tier 2 nations with limited depth in key positions. Tonga's loss effectively ends their hopes of advancing, and the match becomes a flashpoint in broader World Cup discussions about whether bunker upgrades should come with automatic replacement options. Edwin Edogbo 2023. During a December 2023 United Rugby Championship clash between Munster and Cardiff, lock Edwin Edogbo is sent off in the 28th minute for a ruck cleanout deemed dangerous. The incident unfolds near halfway as Edogbo drives into the breakdown with force and makes shoulder-first contact with the head of Cardiff's Shane Lewis-Hughes. Referee Ben Whitehouse halts play and immediately consults with the TMO, identifying no drop in body height, no wrap attempt, and high contact with force criteria that eliminate mitigation under World Rugby's head contact framework. The red card is issued directly bypassing any temporary yellow, despite the URC's ongoing 20-minute red card trial. At the time of the incident, Munster lead 10-7 but are forced to play more than 50 minutes a man down. Cardiff exploit the extra space in the second half, scoring 2 tries to secure a 24-17 comeback win. Adogbo receives a 3-week suspension after a disciplinary hearing confirms the act met the threshold for foul play with high danger. The ruling reignites debate over inconsistent application of the 20-minute red policy, which was not active for this specific match. Munster appeal for greater clarity on trial scope, while analysts cite the decision as evidence of the growing tension between intent outcome and red card thresholds in domestic leagues. James Lowe 2022. In April 2022, Leinster winger James Lowe receives a red card in the 51st minute of a Champions Cup quarter-final against Leicester for an aerial collision with Freddie Stewart. The incident occurs as Stewart chases a high box kick, and Lowe, tracking across from the left wing, jumps late and fails to contest the ball cleanly. Instead, his hip clips Stewart's shoulder midair, flipping the England fullback onto his back. Referee Mathieu Renault reviews the contact and applies World Rugby's updated air contact protocol, introduced that January, which mandates a red card for non-contested high-force aerial incidents with no mitigation. The card is issued immediately despite Lowe's visible attempt to turn midair. At the time of the dismissal, Leinster lead 23-12 and are dominating territory with 68% possession. Despite the numerical disadvantage, they control the pace for the remaining 29 minutes and close out a 30-15 win with Johnny Sexton kicking 5 penalties and a conversion. The decision sparks widespread debate across media and coaching circles, especially given Lowe's lack of intent and the minimal actual injury to Stewart. Critics cite the incident as a case study in how rigid application of new laws can obscure situational nuance. Lowe's red card prompts fresh calls for tiered aerial foul categories and pressures competition officials to review how contest timing is interpreted in high ball scenarios. Jacobi Tauli 2022. With just under 10 minutes remaining in a November 2022 Super Rugby Pacific match, Moana Pacifica Lock, Jacobi Tauli receives a red card following a controversial TMO intervention. The incident begins as Tauli joins a driving maul 5 meters from his own try line and delivers a forceful clear-out on a retreating forward from the opposing Brumbies pack. On-field referee Nick Berry initially issues a yellow citing potential foul play but unclear head contact. The TMO initiates an extended review over 90 seconds of multi-angle slow-motion footage before upgrading the sanction to red for deliberate shoulder-to-head contact, ruling no mitigation due to upright posture and force. At the time of the card, Moana trail by just 6 points in a low-scoring defensive contest. The loss of their second row disrupts the set-piece structure and allows the Brumbies to score a decisive try in the final minutes, sealing a 24-11 win. The red card immediately draws scrutiny from players and commentators, particularly around the TMO's reliance on frame-by-frame slow motion, which critics argue can distort intent and force. Tauli's case becomes part of a growing body of decisions, sparking calls to limit slow-mo usage during foul play reviews. The match outcome reinforces the tension between safety directives and matchday momentum, especially during high-stakes late-game scenarios. Owen Farrell 2023. In August 2023, England captain Owen Farrell is issued a red card in the 63rd minute of a Rugby World Cup warm-up match against Wales for a high tackle on replacement back Tane Basham. Referee Nika Amashukli initially shows a yellow and refers the incident to the new TMO bunker system, which upgrades it to red 10 minutes later, citing direct shoulder-to-head contact with high force and no mitigation. The decision follows World Rugby's enhanced head contact protocol adopted in July, aimed at standardizing sanction thresholds across all levels. Farrell's upright tackle technique, previously flagged in a 2020 ban, places him under further scrutiny as a repeat offender. The fallout intensifies when a disciplinary panel controversially overturns the red card 4 days later. Arguing Basham's late drop in height constituted sufficient mitigation. The reversal provokes backlash from players, pundits, and medical bodies, prompting World Rugby to appeal the decision. A second hearing reinstates the red card and hands Farrell a 4-match suspension, ruling him out of England's final World Cup tune-ups against Ireland and Fiji. The case becomes the first high-profile test of the bunker system and its intersection with disciplinary appeals. The sequence forces England to reshuffle their midfield ahead of the tournament, while reigniting debate over consistency in officiating outcomes across hemispheres. Stuart Hogg, 2014. In March 2014, during a Six Nations fixture at the Millennium Stadium, Scotland full-back Stuart Hogg is sent off in the 22nd minute for a late shoulder hit on Wales fly half. Dan Biggar. The contact happens well after Biggar releases a clearing kick, with Hogg arriving at pace and striking the 6.2 playmaker directly in the upper back and neck. Referee Jérôme Garcés initially issues a yellow card, but upon viewing the replay on the stadium screen, and after brief TMO consultation, upgrades the sanction to red. This marks the first Scottish red card in a Six Nations match since Scott Murray's dismissal in 2006. Scotland, already trailing 13-3 at the time of the incident, collapsed defensively after going down to 14 men. Wales exploit the numerical mismatch to score 5 tries, ultimately recording a 51-3 blowout, their biggest ever win over Scotland. Hogg issues a public apology the next day, admitting the challenge was reckless and unnecessary. A disciplinary panel bans him for 3 weeks, citing no intent to injure but high danger and preventability. The incident becomes an early benchmark in the TMO era for how post-review upgrades can shift the flow and outcome of a match. It also reinforces growing pressure on officials to treat late hits with zero tolerance, especially when they target vulnerable playmakers. Jerome Kaino, 2016. In November 2016, during a high-stakes test between Ireland and New Zealand in Dublin, All Blacks flanker Jerome Kaino delivers a shoulder-led hit to the head of Irish centre Robbie Henshaw in the 11th minute. Henshaw is knocked unconscious immediately and stretchered off after several minutes of on-field treatment. Despite the visible head contact and force, referee Jocko Paper awards only a penalty, issuing no card. The TMO reviews the hit but offers no recommendation for foul play, citing Henshaw's ball-carrying angle as a complicating factor. Ireland supporters react vocally inside the stadium, and the match continues under rising tension. New Zealand go on to win 21-9. But post-match scrutiny focuses almost entirely on Kaino's challenge and the decision not to sanction it in real time. World Rugby cites Kaino 2 days later, and an independent disciplinary panel suspends him for 1 week, ruling the tackle reckless and dangerous but not intentional. The incident triggers a wave of criticism over the application of head injury protocols and matchday discipline. Player welfare groups cite the play as an example of inconsistent accountability and high-profile tests, especially when involving Tier 1 nations. The fallout helps accelerate efforts to formalize high tackle frameworks introduced 2 seasons later. James Horwill, 2013. In the opening test of the 2013 British and Irish Lions Tour, Wallabies captain James Horwill becomes the center of a major disciplinary storm after appearing to stamp on the head of Alan Wynne-Jones in the 3rd minute of play. The contact occurs at the base of a collapsed ruck, with Horwill stepping through to rejoin the defensive line and landing his boot on the Welsh lock's face. Referee Chris Pollock misses the incident in real time, and no card is issued on the field. World Rugby's citing commissioner refers Horwill for dangerous play within 24 hours, recommending a suspension under Law 10.4b, stamping or trampling. In a rare move, Horwill is cleared by an independent judicial officer before the second test, citing insufficient evidence of intent. World Rugby appeals the verdict under Regulation 17.22, but the second panel upholds the original decision again, citing balance of probabilities and Horwill's body position. He starts all 3 tests averaging 78 minutes per match, as Australia dropped the series 2-1. The case marks one of the few times World Rugby has publicly appealed a disciplinary ruling against a national captain mid-series. Critics argue the ruling undermines the consistency of head contact enforcement, especially given the high visibility of the incident and the player's leadership role. The controversy forces World Rugby to tighten evidentiary standards for post-match sightings ahead of the 2015 World Cup. Keith Earls, 2016. In May 2016, during the Pro 12 semi-final between Munster and Glasgow Warriors, Ireland wing Keith Earls receives a red card just 18 minutes into the match for a dangerous tackle. The play occurs near halfway when Earls lifts Glasgow center Fraser Brown off his feet and drives him backward, rotating him beyond the horizontal. Referee Nigel Owens immediately penalizes the lift, but after consulting with his assistant and viewing replays, he upgrades the sanction to red under World Rugby Law 10.4J, which covers lifting tackles that result in a player's head or neck hitting the ground. At the time of the card, Munster lead 10-3 and are forced to adjust to a man-down scenario for over an hour. Despite the numerical disadvantage, Munster maintained discipline and tactical control, edging the match 16-11 through a strong kicking game and tight defensive structure. Earls is cited post-match and handed a 2-week ban, with the panel acknowledging his clean record but emphasizing the potential danger of the action. The red card splits commentary teams, some citing textbook foul play, others questioning the force and intent behind the lift. The result, however, shifts perception of Munster's resilience and raises broader questions about how lifting tackles are judged in real time versus disciplinary reviews. The 2016 ruling reinforces automatic red thresholds for tip tackles, a point that becomes central in player safety education campaigns the following year. Zach Mercer, 2024. In March 2024, Montpellier number 8. Zach Mercer receives a straight red card in a top 14 clash against Racing 92 for a head-on-head collision during a defensive stand near the 35th minute. The tackle, which occurs as Racing shift wide off a midfield ruck, sees Mercer launch from an upright stance into the ball carrier's path without a clear bend at the waist. Referee Pierre Brousset rules there is no mitigation due to the high speed and angle of contact, and cites Law 9.13 dangerous tackling without an attempt to lower height. The dismissal reduces Montpellier to 14 men with over 40 minutes to play and triggers a narrow 21-19 home defeat. French rugby media split sharply on the decision, with some defending the red as consistent with new enforcement trends, while others argue the contact was accidental and unavoidable. Mercer's club lodge a formal appeal referencing the tackler's narrow reaction window and body position at contact. But the disciplinary panel upholds the red and imposes a 3-week suspension. The timing is costly. Mercer misses Montpellier's Champions Cup quarterfinal against Leinster, a fixture they lose 30-22. The case becomes a flashpoint in France's ongoing debate over head contact with former internationals, calling for greater nuance in the application of Law 9.13. The backlash pushes the LNR to request clarity from World Rugby on upright collisions in forward-heavy matches. Dylan Hartley, 2013. In May 2013, Northampton Saints hooker Dylan Hartley receives a straight red card just before halftime in the Premiership final against Leicester Tigers. With the score tied at 10-10, referee Wayne Barnes penalizes Hartley for dissent after a breakdown call, and then seconds later sends him off for allegedly calling the official a F-ing cheat. Television mics pick up the phrase, though Hartley insists it was directed at Leicester's Tom Youngs. Barnes is unmoved, citing Law 10.4M, verbal abuse of match officials, and dismisses the Saints captain in the 40th minute. Northampton, playing with 14 men, concede 4 second-half tries and lose 37-17 at Twickenham. The fallout is immediate. The RFU disciplinary panel hands Hartley an 11-week ban, ruling that the player's reputation for prior infractions he had already served suspensions for biting, punching, and gouging factored into the severity. As a result, he's dropped from the 2013 British and Irish Lions squad just days before their departure for Australia. The incident reignites debate over player conduct and referee protection in professional rugby. It also fuels concerns about Hartley's suitability for leadership roles, even as he goes on to captain England to a Grand Slam 3 years later. The 2013 red card remains one of the most high-profile dismissals in English club rugby history. Alessandro Zani 2012. In the 12th minute of Italy's 2012 Six Nations clash against England in Rome, flanker Alessandro Zani receives a straight red card for a dangerous clean-out at a ruck. The incident unfolds just outside Italy's 22 as Zani drives into scrum half Ben Youngs from the side, catching the English player above the shoulder with a raised forearm. Referee Jerome Garces refers the collision to his assistant, and after a brief discussion applies Law 10.4H on charging into a ruck dangerously. At the time, Italy leads 6-0 following a pair of penalties from Christoph Goossen, but the dismissal alters their defensive shape and tempo for the remaining 68 minutes. Despite the setback, Italy stay competitive, holding England to a single try and pushing the match into the closing minutes at 19-15. Zani is cited and initially handed a 2-week ban, though the disciplinary panel later reduces the sanction to 1 week after accepting the act was reckless, not intentional. The panel also considers Zani's prior record and his immediate post-match apology. The decision splits opinions. Some argue the contact meets red card thresholds under World Rugby directives, while others say Garces could have opted for yellow given the speed of the clean-out. The fallout intensifies scrutiny on ruck entry angles and head contact, particularly in early match scenarios with little precedent set. Gavin Henson 2005. In January 2005, just weeks before the Six Nations opener Wales Centre, Gavin Henson receives a straight red card during a Celtic League fixture between the Ospreys and the Border Reivers. Midway through the first half, Henson flies into a tackle on Reivers fullback Hugo Southwell, connecting high with no visible effort to drop body height. Referee Dave Pearson issues the red, immediately citing Law 10.4E dangerous tackling above the shoulders with no mitigating factors such as a slip or sudden change of direction. The dismissal puts the Ospreys down a man for over 50 minutes, though they hold on to win 2016 at home in Swansea. Henson's red card triggers immediate national attention, not because of the result, but because of the looming Six Nations selection window. Wales head coach Mike Ruddock initially signals concern over the timing, as the disciplinary panel hands Henson a 3-week suspension ruling that the tackle carried excessive force and no attempt to wrap. The ban forces Henson to miss the opening 2 matches against England and Italy, both crucial to Wales' Grand Slam campaign. The decision also reopens debate around tackle height enforcement in Northern Hemisphere competitions, with commentators questioning whether intent or outcome should define foul play. The heightened scrutiny influences Law 10.4 interpretations through the rest of the 2005 tournament.